everyone. Welcome to our brand new podcast show for the love of books, featuring indie and small press authors who bravely navigate the treacherous waters of independent publishing. I will be your host, Emma, and we're going to have a blast as we move forward to opening up America and enjoying life again in all its dimensions. It is my pleasure to present to you author Mark Bello, who is a retired attorney and an award-winning author of realistic fiction and political legal thrillers. He has authored a total of 6 books, and a 7th book is on its way. Hi, Mark.
Hello, Emma. That's my granddaughter's name.
Oh, yeah, it's making a comeback.
It has.
It has. Okay, Mark, how has your attorney career influenced your writing? At what point did you decide, all right, this case is going to make a great thriller?
Well, my legal career had a tremendous impact on my writing. In fact, it inspired it. I went to college and I got a degree in English literature. And most of your listeners know what you can do with a degree from English literature. You can go to law school. or you can become an author, I guess. That never really occurred to me. I became a lawyer. And early in my career in the 80s, I handled a case against the Catholic Church. 2 young kids were molested by a priest. And back then, there wasn't the movie spotlight. It wasn't a well-known phenomenon like it has become. It was a dirty little secret in the church. And the church's MO was to cover these things up, to transfer priests from place to place without telling the community they were transferring them to. And when it was all over, one of the things, for instance, that a lot of attorneys would do back then, if they had a case like this, and there weren't that many, but they would get paid to keep the case confidential, to stay silent. And all that is an invitation for more cases. If you transfer a priest to another community and nobody knows who he is and what kind of predator he is, you're inviting more conduct. So my clients and I decided very early in the case that we would not agree to any kind of settlement that included confidentiality. Long story short, we resolved the case. We resolved it successfully. We did a nice job for our clients. And the case always bugged me. For years and years and years, I said to myself, I'll write a book about this someday. And when I retired in 2016, I sat down and wrote my first novel, Betrayal of Faith. And it's a fictional account of how the case felt to me. I create a clandestine CIA type organization within the church that covers these things up by any means possible, and they'll resort to anything to prevent disclosure. And again, it's a embellished fictional account of an actual case. That case in my early career essentially inspired my later life author career.
Okay. During your attorney career, were you on the prosecuting or on the defense side, or both at different points in your legal career?
Okay, your listeners should know that when you talk about prosecution and defense, you're talking about criminal cases.
Okay.
And I was not a criminal lawyer. I was a civil lawyer.
Okay.
So in civil cases, we talk about plaintiff lawyers or trial lawyers and defense lawyers who represent insurance companies typically or corporations.
Okay.
I was a plaintiff lawyer. I represented citizens against the government, against insurance companies, against corporations, against people who harmed individual citizens. Like in Betrayal of Faith, the actual case, two young boys and their mother took on the Catholic Church. That's a David versus Goliath type endeavor, and that's what my book kind of describes.
And is that the book, Mark, that you received an award for? Betrayal of Faith?
Well, actually, I've received awards for now 5 of my books. The 6th one, actually, all 6 of my books have won an award. So there you are.
Okay. Has John Grisham inspired you in any shape or form?
One more time.
Has author John Grisham inspired you in any shape or form?
Well, I would say that the answer to that is yes, but I wouldn't give him exclusive tribute. I love the legal thriller genre.
Okay.
I've read a lot of authors of legal thrillers. Grisham, Scott Turow, Bugliosi, Lisa Scottowin, you name it, Steve Martini. There's a lot of great legal thriller authors, and yes, they've inspired me. The difference between them and me, a little bit, if I can push back a little bit on inspiration, is I've been inspired more by real events than I have by other authors. As I told you, Betrayal of Faith was a bucket list. I've got to write a book about this someday kind of experience. I thought I was a one and done author. I didn't think I was somebody that could write novels about subjects that I wasn't directly involved in. And then the presidential election happened in America. And I was concerned that a power-hungry bigot would become president of the United States. And I wrote a book, my second novel called Betrayal of Justice, which tells the story of a country in turmoil after the election of a narcissistic, bigoted president, and the false arrest of a young Muslim woman. The president makes it his goal to make sure this woman, because it supports his anti-Muslim agenda, he wants to make sure this woman is convicted. And Zachary Blake, the hero of all my books, ends up taking on not only the criminal justice system in Michigan, but the president of the United States. I've had some people tell me or accuse me of doing a hit job on Donald Trump by writing this book, and my response to that is, I wrote the book before he became president. So if you see a comparison between Donald Trump and Ronald John, the president in my book, the fault of that comparison is Donald Trump's, not mine. He chose to imitate my guy, not the other way around. Yes. My guy was first.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay, I wrote the book before he was president.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about your newest book in the Zachary Blake Legal series, Supreme Betrayal. The main characters are Hayley Larson and Oliver Wilkinson. How did you come up with these characters?
Well, the book, if it isn't obvious, was inspired by the Kavanaugh hearings.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a Supreme Court nominee who has a sexual assault allegation in his past. Now, the difference between Brett Kavanaugh and the evil character in my book, and he's probably the most evil character I've ever written, including this president I just described.
Yes.
But Oliver Wilkinson is probably the most evil character I've written so far. Kavanaugh was accused of a sexual assault. The sexual assault against him was not proven. He completed the nomination process and became a Supreme Court justice. The character in my book is his own evil guy. He's guilty. I make it very clear he's guilty from the first chapter on. It is not a book about Brett Kavanaugh. It's a book about truth to power and a brave young woman who takes on the President of the United States, the US Congress, and a candidate. The political process of nominating a candidate using Zachary Blake as her attorney and having him by her side, she takes on the system and tries to prevent him from becoming a Supreme Court justice. And that's what Supreme Betrayal is about.
And does Hayley get her revenge, or would that be a spoiler if you tell us?
That would be a spoiler. Read the book.
Okay. Okay. You tell the story from alternating points of view. Can you explain that to us, to our listeners?
Well, yes, I tend to write a lot of dialogue in my novels. So from character to character, as each one is thinking or doing or talking, I'm presenting that person's point of view. And the book, and all my books for that matter, go back and forth from good to evil, and everywhere in between. But they do tend to convey many different characters and many different character points of view.
Okay. So is there a lot of you in Zachary Blake? You touched on that previously, but can you kind of expand on that? Or
I think we talked off air. I told you that Zachary Blake's a much better lawyer than I was.
Oh yeah. So he was the better.
He's got a lot of confidence. Not in the first book, by the way. He's kind of a rags to riches story. He loses his practice. His career is in the gutter. He's teetering on alcoholism, and he gets this call from the mother of these two kids, and it turns his career around and his life around. As the books progress, he becomes quite the justice crusader, quite a force in making sure justice is preserved, and he becomes quite a dynamic lawyer. Is there some of me in him? Sure there is. Is there some of other lawyers who I've encountered on my journey? Yes.
Yes.
He's a compilation of a lot of lawyers who I know and respect.
Okay. Tell us also about your realistic fiction.
Well, as I said, as I told you about Betrayal of Justice, all of my books were inspired by real events. So Betrayal of Justice, as I indicated, was inspired by the 2016 presidential election. Betrayal in Blue is a it's not a sequel to Betrayal of Justice. Betrayal in Blue is my third book. It's about white supremacy. Um, it's a follow-up to Betrayal of Justice, and it was based on what was happening after Trump got elected, and the rise of white supremacy in this country, and their anti-black, anti-Muslim, anti-Jewish rhetoric that seemed to thrive during the Trump administration. The fourth book is Betrayal in Black. It is a cop on black traffic stop shooting. And obviously, it was inspired by some of the police shootings of innocent black men in America. The case that inspired this particular book, the one that it's based on, is Philando Castile in Minnesota. It was written before George Floyd, but it offers not only the mechanics of a traffic stop shooting and a cop who is a racist but doesn't realize it. And there again, we get these conflicts of characters and personality traits that are that we go back and forth from and to in the novel, from the heroine, the widow of the victim, and the very traumatized, conflicted cop who doesn't, who wonders how this could have happened to him. He's a tragic bad guy. He's not necessarily somebody who I do a hit job on, or I make evil. He really is a conflicted person who didn't realize his racist tendencies. The book also offers some solutions to the problems. And by the way, the defund the police movement and the calls for police reform, it's very interesting to me that some of the suggestions I make in my book for reforms are reforms that are now being considered as part of the package of reforms that Congress and state and local governments are considering when they discuss these issues. So I think that's kind of cool. The book following Betrayal in Black, the fifth book, is Betrayal High. It's about a high school shooting, mass shooting, and very much like Betrayal in Black, it discusses solutions to the problem, gun control, laws that protect gun owners and gun manufacturers, some of which should not be on the books. We can talk about that if you'd like. And again, the book offers a good versus evil, David versus Goliath, and solutions to the problem type of commentary on the issues of school shootings or mass shootings. And then the sixth book, as we discussed, is Supreme Betrayal, about the woman who tries to hold her sexual predator, now candidate for Supreme Court, accountable for his sexual assault on her 20 years earlier.
Okay.
I also wrote a Holocaust-era novella called Lador Vador, which in Hebrew means from generation to generation. And it's a prequel. It's about Zachary Blake at age 13, the night before his bar mitzvah, and he has a conversation with his grandfather, Max Lewin, who tells him the story of his escape from Auschwitz. So I try to take real life events, history, To your point about realistic fiction, I try to write fictional accounts of actual events, and that's where the term realistic fiction comes from.
That's very cool. What have you learned about yourself from your writing? What have you found out about yourself?
Nobody's ever asked me that before. That I could do it. As I told you, betrayal of faith was something I always said to myself, I'll do. I didn't know whether I could write a book. I didn't know whether I could write a compelling book or a good book. And most people who read Betrayal of Faith and my other novels enjoy my work. So flash forward to 2016, I write Betrayal of Faith. I think I'm all through. I've written my novel, my bucket list novel. I'm all done. I don't know or think that I can write a novel about something that I wasn't personally involved in. And all of a sudden, the 2016 election comes along, and I say to myself, oh my God, this would make a great novel. And Betrayal of Justice was born. Once I wrote that, it became clear to me that I could write a full-length, compelling novel. So I learned essentially that I could do that, and I could do it pretty well.
I agree. Would you do it all over again? Your attorney career followed by your writing?
I would definitely do my attorney career over again. I enjoyed practicing law. I enjoyed helping people achieve good results and, for lack of a better way to say it, justice, some measure of justice in their cases. There are things I would have done differently, but I'm very satisfied with what I did as a lawyer. The writing career, I would love people to find my novels and read my novels and learn a little bit from them. I think people today are unwary victims of injustice or future victims of injustice and don't understand how unjust the system can be because politics get in the way. Phrases like tort reform, malpractice reform, immunity, caps on damages. There are a lot of political solutions that, in my mind, violate the Seventh Amendment to the Constitution, which provides for civil justice without political interference. A lot of these statutory political solutions to a false crisis that people are suing each other for very little reason and getting lots and lots of money, which is baloney.
Mm-hmm.
People are not aware that their own representatives are passing laws that prevent their access to court. So I, in my small way, with my practice, I tried to fight that kind of legislation, both in my practice and in my political activism and in my charitable activism. But now with these novels, I can expose these issues to a lot more people than I could in my small little local practice. So that's pretty satisfying. What I have to do, though, is continue efforts like this to get more people to read and learn about, for lack of a better way to say it, and not to be crude, but how they're being screwed out there, and
Yeah.
not in a good way.
Yes, I agree. Russian author Anton Chekhov was a medical doctor, and he said, "Medicine is my wife, writing is my lover." What would you say about, or how would you compare your two careers to what? Your
Well,
attorney career and your writing. In other
well,
words, go ahead.
I, I would say that so far, um, I must say I enjoy writing. Um, Practicing law was my passion. Writing is fun. I'm not I'm not there yet where I would say I'm I have a passion for writing. I have a passion for justice. I have a passion for um, fairness. Um, the law, the law as a career allowed me to achieve that for clients. Um, Writing has been a what I would call an expensive hobby. Um, I spend more than I make, but I get the opportunity to expose, like I said earlier, more people to the uh, inadequacies, inequalities, and unfairness of the justice system. You know, again, look at how the wealthy seems to skirt justice, and how the middle class or the poor seem to always have um, these kinds of George Floyd types incidents happen to them. Um, so I hope that my work will get recognized, and people will learn more about these injustices.
So, where can people see you this summer in person or virtually? Where can people find you and your books?
Well, I'm not sure about seeing me because COVID has kind of uh, prevented that, and there are some um, loosenings, but I'm not sure what's available to an author in terms of personal appearances. I will. There's a local company called Pages Promotions in Michigan. Um, I think you can probably Google Pages Promotions and come up with that. There's a June festival where a bunch of independent authors are getting together and doing some fun things and readings and what have you. And I'll be participating in that. Um, Not all the authors in that organization are local, but it does originate in Michigan. Um, that's about the only thing I have. The only event that I have planned. There's a couple of podcasts coming up that I'm going to appear on, and you can go to my website at markmbello.com, and you will over the summer will announce, or my Facebook page for that matter. You can go to Mark and Bello Books, I think it is, at Facebook.
Okay.
But we'll announce our appearances as we go along.
Okay, Mark. Would you like to read to us?
I would be happy to read to you.
Excellent.
I cut a piece of my book up out just to read for you. So I've got it on the screen. Yeah, I don't. If it looks like I've memorized my book, I haven't. I'm just. I'm reading it off the screen.
Neither have I.
I will set it up for you.
Okay.
Hayley, by the way, one more thing about my books. 4 of my novels, not intentionally, but it just so happens, 4 of my novels feature female clients, very passionate and strong women who take on, in the case of Arya Khan, a young Muslim woman takes on the president of the United States. Um, uh, Sarah Hayes, the widow in Betrayal in Black, takes on a city and a police department. Um, in Supreme Betrayal, uh, well, and in the first novel, Jennifer Tracy takes on the Catholic Church. And in this novel, Supreme Betrayal, Hayley Larson is a teenager who was, as I indicated, sexually assaulted at a party by a rich, entitled law student. And the book then fast forwards 20 years. She's now a rape counselor. She's married with 2 kids, but she still is haunted by this incident. And on this particular day, the reading I'm about to read, she's just watched a news report on television. And the report features the law student who is now a judge who assaulted her so many years ago. What's the news? Judge Oliver Wilkinson is the president's choice for an open seat on the United States Supreme Court. And Hayley is beside herself. And that's the setup for the reading. Like a terrible addictive habit, here he was again. This time he was a candidate to become a justice on the highest court in the land. His vote was to be the important swing vote for a divided court. His sense of entitlement, narcissistic attitude, and political ideology was repugnant to her. On top of all of this, he was a criminal. Hayley was beside herself. What should I do? What can I do after all these years? Who would believe me? Would I be wasting my time? Causing myself unnecessary pain and aggravation? How can such a man be qualified to serve on the United States Supreme Court? Has he done this to anyone else? Honey, are you okay? Joel snapped her out of her thoughts. She didn't even realize he was holding her. Joel, oh my God, how can they even consider this guy? Did they get my letter? Do they know what kind of man he is? What kind of predator he is? How can they do this? She looked into his eyes, pleading for words of comfort, understanding, and perhaps wisdom. Hayley, sweetheart, maybe they don't know. The committees must have gotten my letter. You never heard from either committee, or from the press for that matter. These committees sort through a lot of bull. Maybe the letters got buried in bureaucracy. And the press? What's their excuse? Who knows, Hayley? They get thousands of tips, leads, and stories every day. The same type of bureaucracy issues in a different setting. It's not some deep right-wing conspiracy. Maybe it just got lost or ignored or deep sick somewhere. Maybe. Hayley drifted off in thought. Hayley? Joel squeezed her hand, bringing her back. Oh, Joel, how many times must I rehash this? I can't keep going back. Who says you have to? Wilkinson certainly has the legal and judicial credentials to be a Supreme Court justice. Maybe we just leave well enough alone and mind our own business. Joel didn't really mean what he said. He was brilliantly leading her to the only choice she had. She needed to expose this guy for the predator he was. His strategy worked almost immediately. And what happens when a rape victim needs an abortion? What happens when the court looks at issues of government funding for victims programs? What happens to a wide variety of social issues a guy like Wilkinson couldn't give 2 shits about? David won't have any chance to beat Goliath for the next 40 years. I understand that, sweetheart. But those are issues of political and legal ideology. Do you oppose him because he's a criminal or because he's an extreme right-wing Republican? Both. What's wrong with that? Nothing. But if you're going to do something, whatever that might be, I want you to do it for the right reasons. Would you go after Wilkinson if he was on your side of the issues? And there it was. Leave it to Joel to wrap this up into a neat little one-sentence package. Would I? She paused, staring into outer space again. Joel squeezed her hand. Damn right I would, Hayley growled. He's a criminal. He should be in prison. He never should have been granted a law license, let alone a seat on the circuit or appellate court. Supreme Court? Oliver Wilkinson? Joel? That's a bridge too far. So what do you propose to do? Hayley was in agony. She crinkled her nose, tightly closed her eyes, and dropped her head into her hands. I don't have a clue. What do you propose, my knight in shining armor? Joel was developing a germ of an idea. Are you ready to go public with this? Your idea is to go public? What about the kids? How would the kids feel as adults in 20 or 30 years, and this guy's still a Supreme Court justice? How would they feel knowing their mother could have done something to prevent it and did nothing? Boy, you don't pull any punches. What happened to my patient, loving, and supportive knight? He's right here, Hayley. He's watched this guy occupy an important space in your head for years. This guy has affected your relationships, career choices, moods, even how you sleep and dream. Your loving knight in shining armor says it's time to fight back. What do you propose? You remember Zachary Blake, the lawyer? The one with all the large verdicts? That's the one. The ego is well deserved because he's the best in the city. Okay, what about him? Zach sends me patients from time to time. We work together on serious accident cases. I guess I knew that. What does that have to do with me and Wilkinson? Zach's a powerful guy in Michigan politics. He's a large donor to the Democratic Party in Michigan and nationally. He's well connected and very politically active. He cannot be happy with the Wilkinson appointment. So I think we should make an appointment to see him. Tell him the whole story. Let him investigate and expose this guy. No one knows how to play the media better than Zachary Blake. He's the master. If there are legal issues, or if you're called to testify before the bar or the Senate, Zach can provide legal advice and representation. I don't know, Joel. Other than my original complaint, my letters, the only person I've ever talked to about this is you. What original complaint? You never mentioned that before. When this first happened, I filed a police report and told the West Bloomfield police the whole story. What happened? Oliver's parents intervened. They were wealthy, powerful people, very politically connected. That's probably how Oliver became a judge in the first place. West Bloomfield PD conducted a very short investigation, and I was told it was my word against his. That's good to know. That means there's an original record that may come in handy. If we decide to go forward, make sure Zach knows about that report, the investigation. Oh, Joel, what about our careers? This could be a huge media and political spectacle. Press could descend on our front lawn. What about the kids, the school, the neighbors? What about our privacy? Hayley squinted in anguish and buried her face in her hands. All good points. Again, we don't have to do this, but I'm tired of seeing this space Oliver Wilkinson continues to occupy in your brain. It's your choice and yours alone. I won't force you to do anything you don't want to do, but I say go for it. Yes, there'll be short-term pain, but long-term gain, if you're successful, will be well worth it. I can handle it. I'm sure the kids can too. And I know Zach will make this as painless as possible. He really is the master. The more important question is, can you handle it? Are you up for this, Hayley? Again, Hayley Schultz paused, deep in thought. Let's do it, she finally said with determination. Call Zach. Let's expose this bastard and let the chips fall where they may. That's my girl. I'm on it, sweetheart. Joel and Hayley Schultz stood and embraced. Joel hugged the love of his life as if he would never let go. Hayley felt so comfortable in his embrace. When they finally separated, they gazed into each other's eyes, perhaps second-guessing their decision to move forward. Joel took Hayley's hand and led her upstairs to the master bedroom. Their lives were about to change forever, for better or for worse.
Nice. Thank you, Mark.
My My pleasure. Thank you.
Before we do our parting shots, I would like to thank our sponsors of the show, Doc Shavant and Digital Quill Services for Writers. Mark, can you give us your parting shots?
My parting shot. Go to markmbello.com. Try at least one of my novels. Try them in order, I would suggest. People tell me that the books can be read as independent novels. As an author of a series, my preference would be to have people read them in order, but they can be read as standalone books. The novella, L'Adore Vador, From Generation to Generation, is available free at my website. All you have to do is subscribe, or you can get it for free on Amazon. And I appreciate your willingness to have me on and the people's support.
Thank you.
Hopefully they'll enjoy.
And my parting shots are buy indie, read indie, and write indie. Keep your fingers on the keyboard and your butt in the chair. Thank you, Mark.
I'll give it my best.